Before we begin, tap like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us uncover the darkest corners of the prison system. Now, let's step inside. The moment you enter the prison system, your name stops mattering. From that second forward, every decision about your life is made by a system you cannot see, cannot question, and cannot escape. You don't choose where you sleep. You don't choose who you live with. You don't choose when the lights turn off. Even your movements, when to stand, when to walk, when to speak, are no longer yours. This documentary is not about crimes. It's not about courtrooms or verdicts. It's about what happens after you are absorbed into prison system, where control replaces identity and personal choice quietly disappears. From intake processing and classification to housing decisions that could define the rest of your sentence, we break down the hidden mechanics that take over the moment the gate closes behind you. Because once you enter the prison system, freedom doesn't just end, control begins. Intake. The first thing you lose is control. The prison system does not introduce itself with violence. It starts quietly. The moment you arrive, you are no longer treated as a person who made a mistake. You are treated as a body to be processed. There is no conversation, no explanation, no chance to ask questions. Orders come fast, clipped, and without emotion. Stand here, face forward, hands out, don't speak. Your personal belongings are taken first. Wallet, phone, jewelry, paperwork, even sentimental items, letters, photos, things that once proved who you were, are placed into bags and sealed away. Some of them you won't see again for years. Some never return at all. This is intentional. The prison system strips identity before it assigns a number. You are searched, documented, photographed, and logged into a system that already knows more about you than you do about it. Height, weight, scars, tattoos, medical history, mental health flags, past behavior, prior incidents, gang affiliations, real or suspected. At this stage, guilt or innocence no longer matters. The system only cares about risk. From this point forward, every decision is based on how dangerous you are believed to be, not who you actually are. You are issued clothing that looks nothing like what you wore hours earlier. The fabric is stiff. The fit is wrong. The color is chosen not for comfort, but for visibility and control. This uniform is not meant to represent you. It is meant to erase you. The intake process can take hours, sometimes days. You wait on benches, in holding cells, in rooms with no clocks and no windows. Time begins to blur, and that is not accidental. Prison intake is designed to disorient. When inmates don't know the time, they stop resisting the schedule. When they stop resisting the schedule, the system works more efficiently. This is where many inmates realize something unsettling. Nothing is explained unless it has to be. You are not told where you'll be housed. You are not told how long you'll stay there. You are not told what comes next. Questions are ignored. Silence becomes the answer. Behind the scenes, assessments are already happening. Correctional staff are watching how you move, how you speak, how you react under pressure. Every gesture is information. Every mistake becomes data. By the end of intake, the system has decided one thing with certainty. You are no longer in charge of your own life. This is not the harshest part of prison, but it is the most important. Because intake is where the prison system teaches its first lesson. Compliance is not optional. And once that lesson is learned, the rest becomes easier. Classification. How the system decides where you belong after intake. You are not sent to a cell by chance. You are classified. This is where the prison system quietly decides what your life will look like. Not just tomorrow, but potentially for years. Classification is not a single interview. It is a layered process built on files, scores, and assumptions. Your criminal history is reviewed line by line. Sentence length, type of offense, prior incarcerations, disciplinary reports. Even charges that were dropped or never proven can still influence how you are labeled. At this stage, the system is not looking for truth. It is looking for patterns. Risk assessments are calculated using formulas most inmates never see. Violence scores, escape potential, institutional behavior predictions, mental health flags, gang indicators. sometimes based on tattoos, hometowns, or associations you didn't even know mattered. You may sit across from a classification officer who asks only a few questions, sometimes none at all. The decision is often already made before you enter the room. Minimum custody, medium, close, maximum, administrative control. Each level determines how often you move, who you can interact with, how much freedom you will have, and how easy you can lose it. A low classification might place you in open dorms, work programs, or lower security yards. A higher one can mean steel doors, limited movement, and near constant supervision. What makes this moment so powerful is this. You have almost no ability to challenge it. Appeals exist on paper, but rarely change outcomes. Classification boards trust the system's data more than the inmate's words. Once a label is applied, it tends to follow you from facility to facility. Even behavior during intake can affect the outcome. Hesitation, nervousness, silence, all of it can be interpreted as risk. From this point forward, your classification becomes your reputation. Other inmates don't ask who you are, they ask what level you came in at. Staff don't respond to your personality. They respond to your file. And here's the part most people don't realize. Classification is not permanent, but it is fragile. One incident, one misunderstanding, one report written at the end of a long shift. That's often all it takes to move you into tighter control. This is how inmates learn the second rule of the prison system. Staying out of trouble does not guarantee safety, but being labeled guarantees consequences. By the time classification ends, the system has placed you exactly where it believes you belong, not based on who you are today, but on who it believes you might become. And once that decision is made, the next step begins, movement. Because after classification, the system doesn't just control where you live, it controls where you are sent next. Transfers. When the system moves you without warning in the prison system, movement is never announced. There is no countdown, no notice, no explanation. Transfers begin quietly, often in the middle of the night. An officer appears at your cell door. Your name, or more often your number, is called. You are told to pack what little property you have. Sometimes you are given minutes, sometimes seconds. You are not told where you're going. You are not told how long you will be gone. You are not told if you're coming back. This uncertainty is not a mistake. It is a feature. Transfers are one of the prison system's most effective control tools. By keeping inmates unaware of when or why they're being moved, resistance becomes pointless. You cannot prepare for something you do not understand. Most transfers are administrative. Some are disciplinary. Others are simply logistical, bed space, staffing, or population pressure. But to the inmate, the reason rarely matters. What matters is that everything familiar disappears at once. Cells change, yards change, rules change, people change. Even the smallest differences, meal times, count procedures, movement schedules, force inmates to relearn how to survive. Transport itself is slow and exhausting. Long hours sitting still, minimal communication, constant supervision. The process is designed to reduce movement, reduce interaction, and reduce identity. During transfers, inmates exist in a kind of institutional limbo. They are no longer part of the facility they left. They are not yet accepted into the one they are entering. Files travel faster than people. By the time you arrive, the new facility already knows your classification, your history, and how you are expected to behave. First impressions are replaced by paperwork. And once again, you are evaluated. How you exit the transport, how you follow instructions, how you respond to unfamiliar authority. Every move is watched. Every reaction is recorded. This is where many inmates learn a harsh reality. You are never settled. Even if you behave, even if you comply, even if you follow every rule. At any moment, the system can move you again. Transfers prevent inmates from feeling stable. And stability in the prison system is dangerous because stable people start thinking ahead. They start forming plans. They start reclaiming small pieces of control. So the system keeps moving them. Not constantly, just often enough to remind them who decides. By the end of a transfer, most inmates understand something deeply unsettling. A cell is not a home. A facility is not permanent. And nothing you build inside the prison system truly belongs to you, because the moment the system decides otherwise, you are moved. Housing and control. How the system decides how you live once transfers end. The prison system does not give relief. It gives structure. Housing is where control becomes routine. Your cell assignment is not random. It is based on classification, availability, staff assessment, and sometimes institutional politics that inmates never see. Two cells in the same unit can feel like two completely different worlds. Some inmates are placed in open dorms, others behind solid steel doors. Some share space with dozens of people. Others are locked alone for most of the day. The system decides. When your door opens, how long you are out, where you can go, who you can stand next to movement is scheduled down to the minute. Meals, recreation, showers, counts. Everything runs on repetition, not for efficiency alone, but for conditioning. When every day looks the same, resistance fades. Housing units are designed to limit choice. Even simple decisions are removed. You don't choose when to eat. You eat when told. You don't choose when to sleep. Lights dictate that. You don't choose privacy. It no longer exists. This is where inmates begin to feel the weight of time. Days stretch. Weeks blend together. Without meaningful control over the present, thinking about the future becomes harder. That's not accidental. A population focused only on surviving today is easier to manage than one planning for tomorrow. Correctional staff rotate. Units don't. The building becomes the authority. In higher control housing, silence replaces interaction. Doors open and close electronically. Conversations are brief. Instructions are short. Compliance is expected without explanation. For inmates in restricted housing, isolation becomes a rule. Limited movement, limited contact, limited stimulation. The goal is not punishment alone. It is containment. And here's the part most people outside never see. Housing decisions can change without warning. One report, one accusation, one shift change. An inmate can be moved from general population to tighter control overnight. Not always for what they did, sometimes for what the system believes might happen. This creates constant pressure. Even when things are calm, inmates know stability is temporary. Every day becomes a test of behavior. Every interaction carries risk. Survival depends not just on following rules, but on avoiding attention. This is how the prison system maintains order without constant force, by making control invisible, by making routine unquestionable, by making compliance the safest option. Housing is where inmates learn the truth. Prison is not defined by bars or walls. It is defined by control over time, space, and choice. And once that control is established, the system doesn't need to remind you. You remind yourself. Permanence. When the system becomes your entire life at a certain point, prison stops feeling temporary. For inmates serving long sentences, decades, or life, the system no longer feels like a place they are passing through. It becomes the environment they must adapt to permanently. The early shock fades. The fear dulls. The routines solidify. This is when permanence sets in. Long-term inmates begin measuring time differently. Years are not counted by calendars, but by staff rotations, policy changes, and who has disappeared from the unit. Birthdays are remembered quietly. Holidays lose meaning. The outside world continues moving forward without them. The prison system adjusts how it manages inmates once it understands they are not leaving anytime soon. Work assignments become tools of stability. Programs are used to manage behavior. Privileges are structured to reward compliance over time, not improvement. Hope is controlled carefully, enough to keep order, never enough to challenge authority. For inmates with no realistic release date, the future collapses into the present. Every decision becomes about survival inside the system, not preparation for life outside it. Skills change. Priorities change. Even identity changes. Many inmates stop thinking in terms of years and start thinking in terms of routines. Cells are personalized subtly. A photo taped to a wall. A carefully folded blanket. Books stacked in the same order every night. These small acts are not decoration. They are attempts to create stability in a place designed to deny it. Aging behind bars introduces new challenges. Physical strength declines. Medical visits increase. Younger inmates replace older ones. Respect dynamics shift. The system continues at the same pace, regardless of who can keep up. And the most difficult realization sets in slowly. The prison system does not adapt to you. You adapt to it. Long sentences teach inmates how to exist within limits without fighting them, not because they accept them, but because constant resistance is exhausting. The system counts on this. By the time an inmate has served decades, the prison no longer needs to enforce control aggressively. The rules are internalized. The schedule is memorized. The boundaries are understood instinctively. This is the final lesson the system teaches. Control does not need to be violent to be total. For many inmates, prison is no longer something that happens to them. It is the framework through which they understand the world. And once permanence is established, the system has what it wants: order without constant force. When control becomes normal, the prison system does not rely on chaos to function. It relies on structure. From intake to classification, from transfers to housing, and finally to permanence, every stage is designed to reduce choice, not all at once, but gradually. By the time inmates realize what has been taken from them, the system no longer needs to explain itself. Control becomes routine. Routine becomes normal. And normal becomes life. Most people imagine prison as violence, noise, and constant conflict. But the reality is quieter than that. It is paperwork, schedules, doors opening and closing, decisions made far away by people an inmate will never meet. This documentary was not about guilt or innocence. It was about what happens when a system takes over every detail of a human life, and how easily that control becomes invisible. Because the most powerful systems are not the ones that punish loudly. They are the ones that operate silently. And once you enter the prison system, the hardest thing to regain is not freedom, it's choice. This is just one part of how the system works. In future documentaries, we'll continue breaking down what happens inside prisons long after the gates close, and how these systems shape lives in ways most people never see. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe, and stay tuned for more real, investigative prison documentaries.